Hello and welcome everybody to Booze Hour live stream. Today is a cloud edition, and today I will have on Sander Vinberg and Malcolm Heath from the F5 Labs team. So I'm pretty excited to have them on shortly. A couple things to go over though. This is the first Booze Hour live stream of 2021. So welcome back everybody. I hope everybody enjoyed their holidays and is ready to kind of get back into things. We took a break kind of midway through December there, I think. And so I'm excited to get things going again. For Booze Hour, for folks who have not watched a Booze Hour before, this is me presenting some of the folks that I have interactions with in the industry, and they may be from here at F5, or they may be from partners of F5, or maybe some of the customer community as well. But we try to stick to topics around security, around IT infrastructure, cloud automation, that type of stuff. And there's also a community edition podcast as well. So I try to separate these two things. And the point of the community edition podcast or show, live stream, is that one is meant to kind of feature folks that are a little bit outside of our day-to-day operations in IT, but have things that we can learn from, and so we can borrow from other industries as well. And I think we've had some really interesting speakers join us last year in 2020, and this year for 2021, what I'm going to be doing is kind of splitting it up into seasons. And so we'll be starting up a season 2 very shortly here in a couple of weeks. I have most of the guests lined up at this point, but a couple other folks that I'm just pursuing and chasing down right now. And we'll be able to start that up, and we'll run about 6 streams for that one there. So watch out for that coming out in the next few weeks or so. Looking forward to that. Also, folks that are new to this, you may be watching from LinkedIn right now, or you may be watching from YouTube right now. If you're watching from LinkedIn and somehow came across this stream and you're not connected to me, you can either click on connect or click on follow. If you don't want to be directly connected to me on LinkedIn, and then you'll be able to see when this live stream goes live. Every week or a couple weeks or so, we go live on LinkedIn. And then there is the YouTube channel. So if you are watching from YouTube right now, you'll be seeing a subscribe button probably down here, and you'll want to click that so that click that and click on the bell as well. And then you'll be notified when I go live on YouTube as well. And the YouTube link for those that are watching from LinkedIn is youtube.com/DarylandBoo. On there, we have this live stream, community edition live stream, and then myself and Daryl actually jump on every Monday morning-ish, for what we call the weekly update. We're usually having some chit chat on there about our weekends and just kind of hanging out, but also bringing on guests who you can get to know on there as well. People from the industry, people from within F5, and sometimes from outside of F5 as well. We also, besides those 2 formats, this is available on podcasts. So if you just head over to Apple Podcast, Google Podcasts, or Spotify, you can just look up Daryl and Boo or Booze Hour, and then you'll be able to find our content on there that you can subscribe to if you just want to listen to the soothing sounds of my voice. And we also have a newsletter. So there's DarylandBoo.com, and you'll be able to sign up for a newsletter on there, which is just the podcast is also kind of linked on there. The YouTube is linked on there, but also a weekly technical newsletter of just F5 stuff. So if you're trying to keep up to date on F5 releases or webinars that we might have, that type of stuff, we try to keep it as valuable as possible though. So we don't want to put in a whole bunch of spam in there, just anything that's relevant to my typical audience, who is the F5 customers and client base here in British Columbia, Vancouver, British Columbia. A couple other things. No, that is everything. Actually, I've gone through my whole list of stuff that I want to talk about. So we will bring on Sander and Malcolm. Hey guys, how's it going?
It's going well. How are you?
I am good, thanks. So folks will recognize Sander, and folks have not seen Malcolm yet. But for the sake of anybody who's just tuning in, Sander, maybe we'll start off with you. Do you want to introduce yourself and your role at F5?
Sure, yeah. I am a security researcher. Technically, my title is threat research evangelist with F5 Labs, and F5 Labs is kind of a unique team within F5, and I feel really lucky to be on a team like this. All we do is we research kind of the state of security, and we have a really broad ranging brief within that. And so we cover everything from like management and security architecture down to the nitty gritty details, and a little bit on the threat hunting side that we get a little help from other teams in F5 with as well. So a lot of the work that I do is around kind of the overarching state of application security. And I'm currently the lead researcher on the application protection report, but I also sort of keep my fingers in a bunch of other projects around the team as well.
Yeah, very cool. And Malcolm?
Yeah, I'm a security researcher as well. Work on the same team as Sander, doing much the same things, although I'm a little bit more on the back end side. I do a lot of data analysis and develop some infrastructure to support the team's efforts. I've been with F5 now for actually coming up on 9 years. No, not quite that long. Maybe 7 or 8 years. I forget exactly how long. It's been a while.
Yep.
And I've done a variety of things. I worked on the F5 SART, and then before that, I was an E&E with the APM product. So I've seen a lot. Sometimes I have a few things to say.
Yes, and I got to say, like, I've seen lots of your emails, Malcolm, and I know when you were in an E&E role, I was interacting with you a bit there, and the roles that you've held so far at F5 have always been what I would say are like the ninja type roles. Like we need people like you to be able to swoop into certain situations and be able to handle things very succinctly. And we, just before jumping on here, we were talking about stress and whatnot in the IT industry. And you've held some of the more stressful roles at F5. So I commend you and thank you for that.
Oh, thanks.
I can also add that Malcolm often acts as sort of my technical conscience, because it's like I cover like such a wide range of topics, and I've always been kind of a generalist. And so it's pretty often, like on maybe a daily basis, that I have to go just check some minor detail about some subject where I'm in a little bit over my head, and Malcolm always kind of keeps my feet on the ground. So not to mix my metaphors there, but so it's a pleasure to work with him.
Awesome. Very cool. So we are here today to talk about something that the F5 Labs team produced, something that both of you guys worked on, which is, and I'll put a link up here, but if folks just head over to f5labs.com, you'll see this as not the very first article on there, but it's the second article on there right now. This is the 2021 F5 Labs Cybersecurity Predictions, which is a really cool article because it's something where, actually, I'll pull this up right now. It's kind of noted in the first bit here. You guys have been pretty successful in your predictions. The one that you guys put together last year, I thought was really cool in how you wrote it, and I've actually sent it out to a number of customers. But you wrote it in terms of first person from the the security director, kind of talking back to himself about what's happened through 2020. And I just thought it was a really neat way to, talk through the events of 2020. But so far, you guys have been pretty successful in your predictions. So gold star for that one.
Well, it's funny, right? So that first one, the sort of future past tense letter to the present from the future, that was a thing where that was written primarily by the head of our team, Ray Pompon, and he and I were talking about all of the infrastructural change that was happening at the beginning of lockdown. And we had been talking about that on Labs for some time, obviously because of F5's sort of offerings in the VPN space. And Ray kind of wanted to take a slightly different approach to talking about this event and how, like, what the relationship was between like tech trends and infrastructure and the world and like everything that was happening at the time, right? And as part of that, we just sort of observed, I don't even remember which one of us threw this idea out, but we're like, man, there are so many, obviously there are a ton of people who are out of work and still out of work who had day-to-day face-to-face jobs, and those people are in really tough times. But on top of that was also sort of a thinner layer of folks who had been in kind of white collar tech jobs or in business work, and they were let go. And we sort of thought, like, there's a huge amount of skilled labor that just hit the labor pool all at the same time. And we know that there are a lot of folks that are always kind of sitting on some idea, and they're like, what if I did this? What if I do a startup? What if I build an app that would do something really simple, right? And so just kind of threw it out there that this huge deluge of skilled labor might also produce a lot of new ideas coming to the market at once. And that was like that was the prediction that sort of, that one came true. I saw an article a few months later, this would have been like in the fall, and indeed it happened, right? And there's this sort of boom of new startups from exactly the force that we were talking about. And we said, okay, normally if you get a prediction right, you should stop predicting right there, and you retire with your 100% success rate, right? And then we didn't do that, right? So we decided to sort of throw a couple other ones out. I've been sort of ranting about phishing lately, and so it was between my ranting about phishing and the fact that we actually sort of like got one right, that sort of snowballed, and it was a really cool idea that Ray had to pull in all these other contributors, right? And so not just the folks from labs, right? So it's like, I think a lot of people have heard me rant about stuff in the past, and have, Sarah feels really passionate about vulnerability management, but we also got Lori McVitie from the Office of the CTO. We got Peter Scheffler in there, and it ended up being, I think, a really kind of interesting article because of how many different perspectives are in there.
Yes, I read Lori's, and I know internally Lori talks about life at home a lot. I see some of her team's messages on some of the team's channel, or one of the team's channel we have, about working from home and having kids at home. And so her kind of reflecting that in her prediction of attackers hijacking the smart home, I think, kind of resonates with parents out there who think about, hey, I've all of a sudden I've geared out my place with all this stuff. One of the friends of the show, Alex Dow, who is one of the organizers of B-Sides Vancouver, talks about like all these IoT devices he has at home now, and he's a big security guy, and so trying to lock those things down. But hijacking the smart home got me thinking of second guessing how many more smart lights I need to have in my house, or if I'm at this point.
Yeah, I think that was like the most fun one for me when that one came in. And I read it, I was like, oh, that is hilarious. That's like the sort of security incident that most of us, except for the person who's actually locked out of their house, the rest of us can all sort of have a laugh at that, which is not always true in our field. So
yeah, it'll be interesting. There's a lot of things you could do, like you could, first just entry into your home, but say your thermostat, and if that was off, or if that was maximum, either way, you're going to be living in a very uncomfortable home at that point. If that goes off, I guess you can just always go and unplug things, but then it's off. So they've achieved
right, one way or another, right?
But we have Malcolm on too, and Malcolm, you made two predictions here, which I think to a degree. We know 2 is going to come about. 3 was interesting though, in that I recently installed Signal. As a few of my friends have wanted to ditch WhatsApp here, so maybe we can talk through your prediction 3 here first.
Yeah, absolutely. This was really, the origin of this came out of the fact that I saw a trend of increasingly people were moving from currently popular platforms to less popular platforms for a variety of reasons, right? Either, they were concerned about privacy policies, or they were concerned about moderation of content, or, there's a whole bunch of different motivating factors. So I saw a diversification in the market for these things. It wasn't just going to be Facebook or what have you. And I realized that this meant that there was going to be a big increase in the number of different possible places where people were going to be going. Some small platforms that already existed, maybe new ones coming up to meet the need. And in that kind of situation, you run some risks, right? You have a small company that doesn't have a whole lot of users, doesn't have a whole lot of money, and is trying to get a platform out and functional in a relatively limited period of time to meet the need. That's a recipe for maybe not doing security super well. So that was really the origin of it, and that's really all there was to it. As it turns out, it looks like this one is actually coming true. Moreover, I expect it to continue to be true over the next 12 months, I think.
But I think the Parler is interesting in that when it first got unplugged from AWS, I saw a couple different perspectives. I had people that I would see saying, "Hey, this is first of all, this is unjust," but they had their arguments around that, and leaving politics aside, the effect of, hey, if your company is just, the plug is pulled on your company and you are in AWS, and we talk about multi-cloud a lot at F5, how integrated was that app into AWS? And there were people who were not necessarily educated in IT, and they were people in IT were trying to explain to them that, hey, if they really tied themselves into all of the AWS tools out there, it's going to take them a while to bring this back up. And people not quite understanding that, and they related it to like child abuse sites on the dark web, saying, hey, big tech could shut down Parler, so why don't they shut down the dark web? And not quite understanding those things. But then but we've seen Parler just come back up in the last day or two, I think. So I guess they weren't tied that far into AWS where they were able to bring things back up. But at the same time, it was also exposed that they left it open enough that they didn't scrub geolocation data, I believe. And so those are one of the things where you thought you were on a platform where you could do certain things, and some of those assumptions were not true.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's worth pointing out that the work by is it the Internet Archive, or no, it's not. I forget the name of the team that was doing all of the downloading before they went offline, and I apologize for that. But they were not abusing. They weren't exercising vulnerabilities per se. They were just using features of the API that was available to them that maybe weren't very well thought out.
Yeah.
And there's a sort of mismatch between the intention behind how the Parler people thought that their platform was maybe going to work and how it actually ended up working. And I think that's actually the more interesting thing, is that these sort of configuration errors or mistakes or assumptions don't always prove true, and those can be as much of an avenue into a company's infrastructure as something else, right? As an actual vulnerability, quote unquote, right? Some kind of code flaw.
Isn't that always the case where it's unintentional that for certain features to do certain things, but those are the things that end up being exploits, if you will, later on? And maybe we're seeing that now as for APIs being unintentionally used in a certain way, and maybe probably not documented for the world to use their API in that way, but maybe they had their API open for their mobile app, perhaps, and then it was found and manipulated for that means. But then at the same time, I'm assuming it's fairly normal for photo sharing sites to scrub geo data off of the photos, right?
That's been my impression, at least. I've done a little bit of just poking around on various social media platforms because I was curious about that. I downloaded some images and opened them up with various editors and saw, tried to determine if there was any metadata. And I never personally found any. I didn't spend more than an hour on this, but it seemed like most places were stripping it off.
Yeah.
The fact that Parler wasn't is actually a little surprising to me. I'm not sure if that was an intentional decision or just a side effect of the tool set they were using. But
yeah, I mean, my understanding is that the main reason why any site that allows photo uploads like that, the reason why they often resize and strip metadata is to prevent the photo actually being used to hide a malicious payload, right? And so it's like, it's not just for privacy or whatever. It's supposed to be a security practice, and that is like as file upload vulnerabilities sort of have proliferated, that has become like, as far as I was aware, a pretty hard and fast rule. So I mean, not that I want to like jump and sort of kick the horse or anything, but I'm a little bit surprised that that wasn't being stripped out, because that is not exactly like a super hidden secret technique of security.
So having said that, then should we give prediction number 3 100% true? If that metadata has been screwed off or stripped off, that is the opportunity for malware campaigns.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting, right? In a way, I think Malcolm sort of got very much in the ballpark by sort of identifying the risks between the really rapid growth and poor security architecture. If you sort of look at that in a big picture, I was really sort of well, gratified, I guess would be the right word, that it happened through an API, because I spent a lot of the time this past summer hollering about how APIs, like how the sort of explosion in APIs over the last couple of years was sort of ushering in a bunch of unintended consequences, right? And it's like everybody knows how to use an API and how to build an API one by one. But what does it look like when every single app has sort of dozens to hundreds of APIs? You start to get this like really, really chaotic landscape of threats and vulnerabilities. And so it didn't end up being malware or phishing, but it sure did end up being sort of this like rapid growth leading to oversights in design, leading to, I mean, I think I said this to you over summer, Boo. I have always had a soft spot for hacks that don't require any hacking. Yeah. These sort of like beautifully simple things where you just like, you craft an HTTP request and then you get the crown jewels without ever having to like really break any laws. I love that stuff. So I was a little bit pleased when we got a little bit more information. I found out that it was like Malcolm said, it was an unintentional breach just by somebody trying to archive the web.
Yeah, as far as scoring this goes, Boo, I would not give myself 100% on this, because in this specific one, I was calling out the malware or phishing, and I actually want to put this one on hold and see what happens, because part of the reason why I was talking about this was with this rapid proliferation of new platforms and different use cases. I mentioned telemedicine, for example. We're doing everything via all sorts of different new platforms, right? The point here being that there is still a pretty rich environment if I was somebody who wanted to try to get malware into people's boxes or do a phishing campaign. Especially when you've got people who are maybe leaving one platform and going to another because of something political or something emotional. They're going to be psychologically charged to be more vulnerable to, say, for example, a phishing campaign, right? And I haven't seen that happen yet, but I'm still expecting it to do so. So this one, I'm not going to give myself a grade on yet.
Yeah, the year is young, right?
Yeah.
Yes, it is. We can always we can revisit this in 6 months. Maybe we can go over. We got 3 minutes left, so let's dive into prediction 2 here. Pandemic changes will increase the efficiency and prevalence of currently known attacks. You want to talk to that one?
So yeah, this is much the same, right? The rush to market or deployment leads to. To be honest with you, I think that the actual pace of change in terms of what attacks we see is relatively slow overall. We see changes in the amount we see changes in the targeting, but we much of the basic techniques of hacking they don't evolve super fast, right? It's more of a matter of finding where you can apply them successfully. And more mature organizations typically have better defenses. Less mature ones have typically less good defenses. So again, this is really kind of connected with the one we were just talking about. If I was a threat actor out there, and I saw a massive movement to, say, for example, use RDP to share desktops out so that people could work from home, well, I would start scanning for RDP servers.
Yeah.
Right. It's
Actually,
as simple as that, right?
If I could jump on that, Malcolm, some of the other folks on our team pulled some numbers about midway through the summer, and they found, I think it was as of July, that if you compare July to January of 2020, there had been a 1/3 increase in VPN endpoint visibility, and there had been a 41% increase in RDP visibility on the web. And there were already at that time reports of an increase in brute force attacks against SSH, RDP, and VPN endpoints. So it's exactly like Malcolm said, and we do have some numbers to back that up, is that folks were looking at all the expansion in infrastructure, and they said, here's a great opportunity. And we also know more anecdotally that the same sort of pivot has occurred kind of higher up the stack, at closer to the user level, in terms of phishing campaigns and cred stuffing and brute force against user login portals.
Good segue for that one too. With the minute and a half we have left here, prediction number 1: the confluence of legitimate mail and phishing will ruin email. And your line here, because real emails increasingly look like fishes.
Yeah. I don't want to get myself too fired up about this one, but there's been this sort of explosion in folks wanting to interact with their customers, right? And so it's like you buy something from an e-commerce vendor, and it's like you don't just get a shipping notification, you get their founding origin story, and you get a customer satisfaction story before you've even got your product, and you get all this stuff, right? That's annoying in and of itself, in my opinion. I don't care about a brand's origin story, but increasingly you get this stuff that is mailed out through third-party services. And so you get them from these domains, and like we're teaching people, hey, look at the domain and make sure the domain matches. And they don't anymore, right? And we already know that phishing attacks tend to use HTTPS, like the domains themselves are using HTTPS and TLS. So you can't look for the padlock in your address bar. You can't look at the address itself because it's some domain you've never heard of. And then you can't look at the string in the address bar because it's a randomized base 64, or it's a hash, or it's just a big mess, right? So it's like we have trained people to do all these things, and then you look at the trends in sales and marketing, and they're breaking all those rules. So it's like you either are going to teach people to delete all unsolicited emails, or people are going to get phished. It's like one or the other at the moment. And it's really frustrating because it feels like the security industry is working so hard to ameliorate the risk of phishing, and then people are making money by sort of undoing all that work. So anyway, that's where the frustration comes from there. And I think if these practices don't change, email is going to just continue to become a nuisance.
That is such a good point, and I like how you've pointed that out with those examples there. Like that link there, just I don't know what my mother would do if she saw that link, and like everything I've tried to tell her about keeping herself safe, like I don't know what to tell her about that at this point. Like,
yeah,
she would want to tell her gift card. Like she's those are things that excite her, getting a free $10 gift card. But then at the same time, like I look at that link, I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. And I don't really want her to call me every time that she, so.
Right. Yeah.
In a pickle.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. We are running up on time here, guys. I will mention again, you guys will be on John Wagnon's show on Thursday, I think 12:30 p.m. Pacific time, John Wagnon's Security Sidebar. So you guys will be able to have a deeper discussion on there as well. This article is on f5labs.com. I would encourage everyone to just check it out. I love how these are written. Like they're just written in ways that I could potentially send this to maybe my mom, and she can kind of walk through and glean some of this stuff and maybe pick up a few things, but also just different perspectives on there. I thought that was really interesting for you guys to tie in this year as well. So really cool. Thank you for putting that stuff out, and thank you guys for the time today.
Thanks again.
Absolutely. Yeah, thanks.
Awesome. All right. And if anybody has not hit subscribe yet, there's a subscribe button. It'll be below Sander down there. And also follow me on LinkedIn for more Booze Hour fun this coming year. Thanks a lot, folks. We'll see you on Monday. Bye. Thanks for checking this out today. If you're watching via YouTube right now, go ahead and click subscribe down below. Also click the bell for notifications. That way you will find out when we are dropping a new video or when we're going live. Also, there's darylamboo.com. If you head over to that, leave your name and email address, we will drop a weekly technical newsletter in your inbox every Monday. Also, this is available via podcast, Apple, Google, Spotify. Head over to one of those, hit subscribe, and you'll be able to listen to us in the car on your commute or during a walk or a run. Thank you very much, and we will see you next time.